In this episode on our crate racing street stock build, we've got to get our tubing filled in, our safety plate that goes behind the driver. We got to cut this center out where this drive shaft can go through. I know some of y'all have been mentioning what's going on right there. And the tunnel for the drive shaft as well. So a lot of important stuff from a safety standpoint in this episode. Let's get busy. So my first step here is going to be to get this hoop in that is going to go in place of this section of this 2x2. So first thing we're going to do, I tied a string on to the top of my transmission above where my drive shaft is, and I'm going to pull a string to the back of my frame. And the reason I'm going to do that is because in this build, I want to make sure that, you know, under any conditions, no matter how much rollover, how soft my springs are, anything, my drive shaft in no condition should ever be up to my cross member across here. And so for that reason, I'm going to pull a string to it because I know that that's my target for this hoop going over. Well, I want the bottom of that hoop to be at that string so that it's in line with the transmission drive shaft, so that, you know, if I took the springs completely out of the car and just had it sitting down on the floor, that drive shaft would not be hitting this tube, getting dented or bent or destroyed in any way. So that's the first thing. So we're just going to pull that and get it out of the way. And then I'm going to look, and I know from the bottom of that to that inside, that's 8 inches. All right, for those of y'all who haven't seen this, so we make these cheaters up, and it's really simple. So I've marked, and I've got a line going all the way around this cheater right here. That's where I enter the die at. So that's my guide to tell me where I should enter the die to get this bend to lay out. And so all we do is just line that up and put that mark. And so by putting that mark there, I know that if I line that mark up to where that score is, that bend, like where the end of the tube is compared to where the bend is, that will match what my example piece is. And so we put this back. We're going to drop a little bit of oil on it. We'd like for our die to last a long time. And in you go. Right. So there's that line, and this is the die guide that we're talking about. Because what we do is we drop that line right back to that guide. It's just really easy the way this works. Right, tighten her up there. I'll initiate. So we want it when we put tension on it. So when I put tension on it, that line is going to be right on the edge there. And that's it right there. So now I'm going to take it, tighten her up where she's holding her, like that. Right. Make sure we're on 0 right here when I pull tight. See, when I pull tight, I'm right on 0. And we are going to 180. This DOM is the 1.5 inch DOM on 95. It is not a problem at all. And this thing's got 2 tubes here where you can get way out on the handle, but I actually put the other tube up because I didn't need it. This thing will do some really thick tubing if you need that tube. I'll throw my tube up here. I've already trimmed it. What I'm going to do here is I am going to just make my marks in the center. Cut this. I'll try to anyway. See where we're at. Yep, that works. Yeah, I overcut that hole, that's for sure. That's okay. I want it to fit. I'll have to fill that in. Not my greatest day. That didn't work out exactly right. I didn't have an 1.5" hole saw, and I had an 1 5/8", which theoretically would only be a 1/16 inch of a clearance if it was in the center, 1/8 on one side, and I'm like, you know what, that's fine. But in reality, when it was cutting, it was walking on me terrible, and it ended up cutting holes like 1 3/4 or larger. And so on this side over here, it's okay, I can fill it in. On this side right here, that gap's a little bit too big, so I'm gonna have to fix that. And don't get frustrated like I am right now. But anyway, you just deal with it one step at a time. So I'll go ahead and spot it in and probably weld that side up, and then I'm probably gonna cut a fillet and sit in here on this side and then weld this side up. It is what it is, just have to deal with each issue as they come up. But that one right there was on me. I've got a straight edge across here. I've clamped to my tubes on the back. The reason for that is we're using it just to align this tube. We want all of this to be one wall in alignment. We don't want it to be deformed in or out. That creates structural weakness. So pulls just a little bit, and it's sitting on the floor of this tube. Anyway, so I'm gonna hold it and get some spots on it. So this is a corner I've cut off right there. Watch. Main thing is to remember, don't panic. There ain't nothing you can't fix. Don't panic. Y'all check it out. Okay, so not perfect, but the inside wall right here I've lined up with this wall right here because the tunnel down through here, my drive shaft, I want to maximize that clearance. So I'm going to shave that off and cap that, and then I'll shave it off on this side and cap it. Put a filler in here. I went ahead and put a filler in on that side. Anyway, it's fine. Like I said, I would rather it be perfect, but we just get as close to perfect as we can, but it's fine. So nice beefy piece, cut that out. Now let's work up here. So the next tube we're gonna put in, we're gonna put one across from here down to here. This bar right here, then a tube tying to it, and then once we're tied to it here and everything, we're gonna cut that out. So that's what's going on. Let's do that piece. This is 1.5" 0.95. Not worried about weight right here. Really, I wouldn't have to use 0.95 here because I could go with 0.83 because really what it is, this is a compression structural piece. But I think I may tie on, I may use this as some great points to tie on for like support for my bars on the rear. And so we're gonna go with 0.95 here. That way we've got it if we need it, because weight-wise, we're right where we're gonna add weight. So only this bar across, not completely X. Don't need to, this corner right here is super strong. Floor pan, got that big thick piece of steel there tied. You know, plus all the door bars and everything. Plus there's a piece of plate still going here. So like, I'm not worried about this corner. I am worried about this corner. If this corner got caved in, because again, we're gonna cut that loose. So if this corner did get caved in, that's major structural. That's gonna be very difficult to fix, and just know confidently that we have it exactly right. And so we really want that to be beefy. And the tube right here, of course, that is structural to hold to a certain extent, but it needs more than that. And so for that reason, we're gonna mount that in and put it in here, get it in line with the wall. And so this will be fairly simple to do. We'll just cut these corners back, fit one end in, and then trim the other end and fit it. Let's talk about doing this corner. So this is an inside corner to an inside corner, and we want to get good fit up. And so I want to show you, of course, on one end I went ahead and mounted it as normal. On the other end I mounted it I made sure that I mouthed it to fit, and then I turned around and I bent that mouth open. And the reason I bent that mouth open is because I don't want to cut it off and have this huge gap. I'm going to end up needing to fillet that in or something. So I just took, and after I got it clearance to what I knew would be correct, I just bent that whole mouth down, took a hammer and hammered it down. I'm going to put this in, weld this side up, and then I'm just going to bend this back in place and weld it up. So I've got it nested in the bottom. I've got a lot of wood here. See if I can't. Just like that right there, y'all. Y'all, if you drive this in and it's wedged tight and it will not move, then you have probably don't have enough clearance and you have created a bind in your frame. So take it back out like this, so it'll move. And I'm just going to pull it up, spot weld it in place, bend that over, and let her rip. So what I did was I took and I just beat that back over flat in there. I ain't gonna touch it because it's already hot. I've been welding on the other side. But anyway, see, I just beat that back over. You know, so it's not perfect. It's just keeping you from having to like cut out and then make a fillet and hold in place. It's basically the way to look at it. So, you know, if you need to add some more gussets or structure because you did this, because that is not going to be as strong a mouth as what if you had not done that had been. So just keep that in mind. It's a solution that I use. It works. It speeds the process up. But there are some drawbacks to it. But it's better than leaving it open and trying to piece a piece in there. Or worst case, worse sin would be just trying to sit there with a welder and fill all that in. Don't do that. I took a plumb bob and I've got true center here, and I marked these tubes all the way up through here for the true center of the car. I'm gonna take 1.5 inch 0.95, and I'm gonna come straight up to this top tube right here. So I'm gonna cut one, put one here, cut another one, fit it and put it right here. And then we're gonna come from the top over to the halo corner over here. That one right there. It serves two purposes. It's obviously it's going to add a lot of safety as far as rolling the car over, but also it's going to add safety if this car is over on its side and we take a hit in the floor of the car. So like if we're up on our side and we get T-boned into the bottom of the seat, we're putting safety into this floor here to keep this floor from folding in as well. Got our tube cut, mouthed up, got our level here, set that one in. Put it right on the line at 90 degrees. Here's our next one ready to go. Mouthed up. Set it to 90. In between the lines. Get in there, bit Lou. Next one in, right here. And this is DLM here as well. Alright, so we're right into this center line right here. This works out good for me because my cockpit is going to be open here. And so I have a deck piece that's going to go from here to here across. So it works out good. I'm not going to say that I would just build a roll cage based on making the decking the easiest to work with, but it didn't hurt anything, that's for sure. So make sure we get it right to the center, right in the center of that tube. Yeah, no, not right there. Right. Yeah, right there. That's what we want. Alright, let's cut our tunnel loose here. So, I'm just going to come right inside here on these two walls. Last little piece there, I'm going to have to get with a torch. That or a sawzall or something could do it as well. But I'm just going to use a torch to cut that last last little top out. I'm not gonna be able to get it with a cutoff wheel. That one. So what I'll do is I'll clean that up and I'm gonna rip them corners back, bend the metal in, and then weld it up on each side, and that'll be good. Hey, quick break from the episode here. I just want to talk for a second about how excited we are of the growth of the channel. Dirt Race Life started 7 months ago, and in 7 months we've made about 30 videos. We already have over 1,500 subscribers. This thing has took off like a rocket ship. It has blown us away how fast it's growing, but we're also humbled by it. That's been happening because of y'all. Everybody's been hitting the like button. People have been leaving comments. All of that is making YouTube share it for more people. And then you're also directly sharing the video yourself. It's been huge for us. And I'm amazed at how fast this is growing. I never would have thought this would have happened, but it's happening because of y'all. I also want to shout out to Chirizian Racing out in California. You know, that's a weekend dirt track warrior who's doing the same thing as us. He's got a channel. He's showing his work in the shop and what's going on, him and his family. Great content. Go check him out. I'll leave a link at the end of this description because he found us early on and was promoting us on his channel, and that put us in front of a lot more people a lot faster. So thank you. I didn't realize how big a deal that was at first. That's a big deal. Thank you, buddy. We had a new sponsor jump on board for our channel, Landon Coke. He races the 24C stock car at Riverside International Speedway. So if you're ever in Memphis on a Saturday night, go over to Riverside, check out Landon. That's young up-and-coming talent right there that's going to do some big things in his career. You can join in with Landon and our awesome sponsorship team by checking out our membership link in the video description. And hey, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, folks. We're making some great content here. All right, so before we put the sheet steel in behind the driver's seat, we want to put this tunnel in first where we can get to it to weld it up easier. And before I put the tunnel in, I need to put the safety hoop that's going on the front of the drive shaft. This is 3/16 by 2 inch wide flat steel that I just bent into a 8 inch diameter hoop like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie onto this 1.25 inch. I made a little bit of a scallop right there. I'm going to tie onto it. I got the center marked with my string across the top to make sure that I'm above the center. And then I'll just run a piece across here. It makes sense in just a second. Tie that on. You just want to make sure on this. Make sure when you put this on that the hoop is behind where your U-joint is. Because you're going to have a yoke, and then you're going to have a U-joint, and then your drive shaft. So make sure that you're, in that front 6 inches of your drive shaft, not up on your yoke, because it's liable to jump out from behind you if it is. So now we've got it tied on. I'm going to take a measurement right here, and it's going to be 15 inches to the outside. So I'm going to cut a 15-inch piece, put some 45s on it on both ends. I'm going to use 1 inch 0.65. That'll be plenty for this. Tie it onto our 1.25 inch on each side. Tie the main safety hook to it right here. That'll make a good strong cage for the drive shaft. That thing is not coming out of there. So, like I said, 1 inch 0.65, 45s, mouths on them. Throw it up here. I'm making the tunnel, okay? So what I did, I got me a piece of scrap right here that's just square, fairly thin. Now this is what I'm going to put, just like this. I'm going to have 2 ends in my sheet metal. Right there, yep. That's what that's going to look like. That's what that tunnel's going to look like. And that will be all I will need. Is like that right there. Here's my measurement. And this is 8.5, 14. Yes, this is like a 16-inch piece of steel. And it's going to be 16 inches by 41 inches. Okay, well, why 41? All right, this cage is 40 inches at the base, center to center to tube is 40 inches. This over here will go to the back of the cage, okay? All right, so I'll notch out and take that back so that it's going back to that back wall and over that tube. I'll weld that tube, all right, on this side of it. And then on the front, I'll have a front wall here, and I need a little bit of extra where that I can cut this back and turn up a flange that I can pop rivet a piece of aluminum into. And so instead of going 40 inches or 40 and a half, I'm going to go 41 inches. I'll just fit it up on the back, and then the extra pop a line where that front wall is, and everything past that will draw a line and turn that up just with some flare pliers. And that will be good. So let's get that done. I got my bender out for this one. It hadn't got to be perfect or anything, but I want a good crisp edge on it. Because it's going to get beat on and banged, and so if you've got kind of a rounded edge, it's going to dent easier, and if you've got a sharp edge, it'll help it hold its shape. So I'm gonna tighten her down and get me a nice clean edge going there. All right. So get her to 90. Yep, that's right. Yep. That bender is homemade. It doesn't make a real sharp corner, but it makes a better corner than I can make just throwing it across the jig and using a board. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. I'll stay out here for a second. All right, this is going to get a little bit tedious because what we're going to do, we got a couple of things we got to notch out. So we've got our support across the base right here. And I've got to notch the bottom out for that. The first thing I have to notch out is I have to notch back here where that I come across this tube upright right here. And then I'm going to come across the hoop right here. And so I'm going to put it down where it goes. And so the first ones that I'm going to notch, and of course I'll come in 1.5 inches. And so it's not terrible. I'm just going to make some marks above and below. Try to get this right, and I'll use a piece of tubing. So I'm going to notch this in first, and then once we get it sitting back all the way to the back, it's going to go to this outside wall right here. Once it's back there, then we can notch in the front, here in front of our safety hoop, where these two tubes connect, we can notch out the bottom to sit down. And then once that's done, then we can turn the MIG welder on and start burning this baby in. All right, y'all, so I've got the tunnel ready to go. Ended up making the mouths, a little bit wider to get everything where I wanted it on my notch outs, and checked and took a magic marker and went around it and made sure that I scuffed off any mill finish or any primer that I had on the roll cage where I'm going to weld it. This is 20 gauge, so we're going to be at low voltage, so make sure everything's clean to weld. And it is ready to go. So we're going to get it spotted in place. We got our tunnel welded up, and just quickly wanted to show, we went ahead and we welded this thing in solid the whole way across here. That way, that if something does happen, drive shaft bends up, comes apart, it's got its best chance at being able to hold it. and just working in like 1 inch, or maybe that's 1.5 inches at a time sections, and letting it cool and just welding. Had the welder turned way down, running like 15 volts at about 130 inches a minute to weld all this, because that is 20 gauge steel. Next up on this back here, I'm going to grind any welds that are sticking out here. I'm going to grind any of those down where this piece of plate steel will lay down flat. Let's get that done. So here's how we did this. We took a piece of cardboard. I've already done this just to save time. We took a piece of cardboard and we trimmed until we had it figured out with our cardboard. And then we turned around and transferred it to a piece of 20 gauge. And we got it here, trimmed all the way around, and it's ready to go. And so this is my 20 gauge going in. So we prepped it all the way around. We're going to put it up there and MIG it in as well. And I know it's only 20 gauge steel, but it acts like a gusset as well on all of these corners and stuff. And of course, the thicker it is, the more it's going to act like a gusset. But, you know, like for right here, weight's not relevant. And then too, from a safety standpoint, you know, I'd rather have a piece of steel. If you pull this bolt out of this lower control arm, if you break this bolt right here, you know, that's right in behind your pelvis. So, you know, I'd rather have a piece of steel right here welded up solid to help to catch that and possibly deflect it and keep it from punching through the seat and through me. Every little bit helps. All right, so we've got this burned in all the way around and everything, around our seatbelt opening here, whole thing welded in solid. But I am going to take a flat disc and clean these welds off, especially just down this line right here and across here. The reason that I'm doing that here is because the way that I have my welder set up to burn this 20 gauge without blowing through and everything, you know, I'm running like 15 volts at about 130, 135 inches a minute of wire. And that setup works good for me. I can move fast, not get a lot of heat build up because I'm moving quick and everything, but it does stand the weld up just a little bit. However, the dirt coming off my left rear is going to be hitting this wall, and if I leave this crown down through here, it becomes this point that gives it an attachment place. So even if I've got this painted good and I've got mud off sprayed on this and everything, it's going to want to hold on to dirt really bad, make it a pain in the butt cleaning this car off, because I have to physically scrape every bit of this dirt down through here every time. And so for that reason, I'm going to take a flat disc and I'm going to clean that off. But I caution you here, as a rule, I don't like cleaning welds up unless there is a reason for it. And that's because if the car ever changes hands or anything, someone else is involved and they don't know who built the car and everything. If they're seeing where these welds have been ground down and stuff, now they're questioning the integrity and your competence, and they don't know exactly what you were doing there. So as a rule, building, you know, don't grind welds down unless it's a very specific reason for it, like right here down this line. So that's my take on it. Well, I'm glad to get this tin work done. To me, this is some of the most tedious work, but fortunately on a car build, you do this one time, you get it right, you never have to do it again for the life of that car. And I'm glad that this one is done. I like how it turned out. I think it's right. It fits me well. You know, like I've got it sitting here as far as the room around my arms and everything. I really like how this is laid out and everything. Gives me something really beefy I can put my gear shifter into. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this is going. The next things that we're going to be doing, now that we've got this part done, we can go ahead. We've got some diagonal tubes that are going to come in that are going to stop this cage from being able to twist. So we've got 2 diagonals that are going to come in, and then we can go ahead and close up the outside. Of course, we're missing, there's a big tube that goes right here. There's a big diagonal that goes right here. We've just been leaving them out to make it easier to get in here and get this other work done. Now that it's done, Those are coming up next. And it's starting to look like a race car. Hey, if you like what we're doing here and this is looking good to y'all, smash the like button. That is definitely helping our channel grow because it is growing like gangbusters. See you next time.